The Story of Cinderella. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful girl living in a kingdom. Following her mother's death, her father took to himself another wife. The new wife brought two daughters home with her. Soon after, the stepmother and stepsisters came. They started to treat the poor girl very badly. They took away her pretty dresses and put on her an old gray kirtle and gave her wooden shoes to wear. They also forced her to do heavy work from morning to night. Get up early in the morning, draw water, make the fires, cook, and wash. Besides that, the sisters did their utmost to torment her. They mocked her and strewed peas and lentils among the ashes and forced her to pick them up. In the evenings, when she was quite tired out with her hard day's work, she had no bed to lie on, but was forced to rest on the hearth among the cinders. And as she always looked dusty and dirty, they called her in mockery Cinderella. One day the king ordained a feast, to which all the beautiful young women of the kingdom were bidden, so that the king's son might choose a bride from among them. When the two stepdaughters heard that they too were bidden to appear, they felt very pleased, and they called Cinderella and said, "Comb our hair, brush our shoes, and make our buckles fast. We are going to the wedding feast at the king's castle." When Cinderella heard this, she could not help crying, for she too wanted to go to the dance. She begged her stepmother to allow her. "What? You, Cinderella?" said her stepmother. "In all your dust and dirt, you want to go to the feast? You have no dress and no shoes. You want to dance?" But as Cinderella persisted in asking, at last she said, "I have strewed a dish full of lentils in the ashes, and if you can pick them all up in 2 hours, you may go with us." Upon hearing this, Cinderella went to the back door that led into the garden and called out, "O gentle doves, O turtle doves, and all the birds that be, the lentils that in ashes lie, come and pick up for me. The good must be put in the dish, the bad you may eat if you wish." There came to the kitchen window 2 white doves, and after them some turtle doves, and at last a crowd of all the birds under heaven, chirping and fluttering, and they alighted among the ashes. The doves nodded with their heads, and began to pick-peck, pick-peck, and then all the others began to pick-peck, pick-peck, and put all the good grains into the dish. Before an hour was over, all was done, and they flew away. Then Cinderella brought the dish to her stepmother, feeling joyful, and thinking now she should go to the feast. But the stepmother said, "All this is of no good to you. You cannot come with us, for you have no proper clothes, and cannot dance. You would put us to shame." Then she left the house with her daughters, leaving poor Cinderella alone at home. When they were gone, Cinderella sat down and cried bitterly. While she was still crying and thinking about the unkindness of her stepmother and sisters, she heard someone's voice. When she raised her head, she saw that it was no one other than her godmother, a good old fairy, talking to her. "Don't cry, Cinderella," the fairy godmother said. "You too will go to the feast. But first, you need to bring me a large pumpkin, 6 mice, a rat, and 6 lizards." Not being able to imagine how the pumpkin and mice could help her to go to the feast, nonetheless, Cinderella obeyed. Soon Cinderella fetched all the things the fairy lady asked for. Not long after, she witnessed the godmother turning the pumpkin into a magnificent coach with the touch of her wand. Then she turned the mice into 6 magnificent horses, the rat into a coachman, and the lizards into 6 footmen. Amazed by everything she witnessed, Cinderella still felt sad because she did not have a gown to wear to the feast. Hearing this, the fairy godmother touched Cinderella with her wand, and immediately Cinderella's old dress turned into a beautiful gown, and her wooden shoes became pretty glass slippers. Cinderella was overjoyed and set off to the feast in the coach. Before leaving, the godmother said, "But remember, the magic will last until midnight. You must leave the feast before it strikes 12. Cinderella arrived at the feast. She looked so beautiful that everyone was struck by her beauty. Nobody, not even Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters, knew who she was. As soon as the handsome prince saw her, he directly went up to Cinderella and asked her to dance. The prince danced with her all night long, taking no partner other than her. Cinderella was so happy dancing with the prince that she almost forgot what the fairy godmother had said. When she remembered, she glanced at the clock to see it was only 5 minutes to 12. "Oh, I must go," she cried, and ran as fast as she could. Whilst running down the stairs of the palace, one of her glass slippers came off. But she did not stop to pick it up. Instead, she rushed to the door of the palace. Alas, the clock had struck 12 when she went out. She found no coach, only a pumpkin, and the rat and mice, and they all started to run quickly away when they saw her. Her fine feast gown also turned into rags. She had no choice but to run home alone in the darkness of the night. The prince was very much surprised when he lost the sight of Cinderella. He asked all the attendants, but no one had seen her. When an inquiry was made of the porter, he said no one had gone out of the palace except a poor ragged beggar girl. But while still looking for her around the palace, the prince found the glass slipper that came off Cinderella's foot. He knew well it belonged to her. The prince was resolved to find and marry the lady whose foot would fit in the slipper. The next day, his servants took the pair of that glass slipper and went to all the houses in the kingdom. Thus all the young ladies in the kingdom tried the slipper, but it would not fit any of them. At last they came to the house where Cinderella lived with her stepsisters. Her stepsisters too tried that glass slipper, but in vain. Their feet were too big to fit in the slipper. The prince's servants asked their mother if she had any other daughter. She said she only had one stepdaughter, but she could not be the one, for she is too dirty to be even seen by the prince. When the prince's servants insisted, however, the stepmother had no choice but brings Cinderella into the room to try on the slipper. When Cinderella tried the slipper, it fit her perfectly, as if it had been made of wax for her foot. The astonishment of her stepmother and sisters was great, but it was still greater when Cinderella pulled out of her pocket the other pair of the slipper and put it on her other foot. Thus the prince knew Cinderella was the same girl he danced with at the feast. He married Cinderella, and they lived happily ever after. The kind-hearted Cinderella forgave her sisters and treated them always very kindly. Now, for further practice, I would recommend you to answer the following questions about Cinderella you see on the screen. And please feel free to write your answers in the comments section below. I'll try to check them for you whenever I can. Thanks for watching, and please do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos to come.